So, all righty. So, welcome everyone to our June meeting of the Culver City Democratic Club. I'm so excited to have you here with us this evening in the midst of chaos and uncertainty. And I wanted to start this meeting off by an introduction of one of our greatest leaders. And it was a clip that I saw yesterday, but this clip I identified with the Congress member because this is the moment when someone is so fed up that the mask drops and you're like, there's no more niceness here. The code switch, you turn it all off and you're just raw. And as a Black woman, as a Black progressive, you really have to walk this line of being professional, being soft-toned because you don't want to intimidate anybody, and having when sometimes you just get pushed so far that you just say, F it, I'm a check. That's this moment. And it was much needed. So I'm going to share this because I absolutely loved it. I'm here for it. So check.
Also be clear, then the border czar said that he wasn't going to do it because obviously if they did arrest Gavin Newsom, then it would change the narrative. And then it would be about the illegal arrest of a sitting governor who was elected by the majority of voters in the state of California, and not about a felon who was in the White House who is manufacturing chaos to distract from the fact that he is cutting hundreds of billions of dollars in needed programs that will kill people. This is about if it bleeds, it leads. So he has created and manufactured violence so that he can have a show on the television. But other people, older people, folks who are disabled, young people are going to be bleeding when Medicaid gets cut, when people are evicted from their homes.
So I just wanted to share that because, whew, I mean, when you say that the soul was snatched out that room, the soul was just about snatched out that room. And I just, like I said, I acknowledge you, Sydney, because I know you have been trying to walk that line, and I know how hard it is to have that, that just, you just gotta, sometimes you just gotta drop it and just be like, look. And that was the moment. And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, yes, yes. That is what America wants to see. And I'll turn it over to you, Sydney, but I want to share one quick thing. So last week, I had a patient I'm doing my job, I'm a clinical case manager. Medicare is what I do. I'm the one that knows these things, right? I know how Medicare works. I know how, everything. And of course, the topic of discussion is what is happening? What is going to happen? I can barely afford my premiums now. And what is going to happen? I can't afford my medications. I don't qualify for Medi-Cal because I get a little bit of pension because God forbid people actually worked and actually get to retire. I thought that was the dream, but I guess God forbid it. So, but she said something and she was like, Democrats are being too nice. We don't need nice. We need radical. And I was like, well, and so that took me back because it's not like I go on the bedside with my I'm a Democrat hat on and all that. It was just something that was said by a public patient of mine. No preface or anything. She just stated that out loud. And I'm like, and now you see, now here's bold. Like you're bold, and that's what they want to see. So I just wanted to share that for you because that was something that came to me directly from a patient without any conversation about politics. So you are on the right path. This is daring leadership. If anybody in this party, I don't care if it's Hakeem, I don't care if it's Nancy, I don't care. If they tell you to tone it down and act with decorum, I will ship them to Britain and have them go to Parliament. Okay. With that being said, I want to introduce our lovely representative in the Congress, Sydney Kamlager Dove, the fierce, like I said, badass cat lady.
So good to see all of you all. And thank you, Queen, for that amazing introduction. Yes, you could tell I was fed up. And with all much love and respect to my colleagues, I was sitting there in that press conference thinking, I don't know why motherfuckers ain't upset because we all know this is a farce and somebody should just say it, a week earlier, he had the divorce without a prenup, from Elon Musk. And it was worthy of a Bravo TV show, Epstein Files and woo, and we had this reconciliation package that every single Republican voted for. And then people got the nerve to say, a couple people who didn't vote for it said, "Oh, I fell asleep," because they knew it was wrong and they're vulnerable in purple seats. But it's horrible. It's cutting Medicaid, it's cutting Medicare, it's cutting food to farmers, it's cutting WIC, it's cutting food assistance, it's cutting the education department, it's cutting everything. And then he's got this other package that's coming up called a rescission package, where essentially he is clawing back money that Congress has already appropriated for disaster assistance, for peacekeeping programs, for public broadcasting and public radio. He's going after lamb chop. And he didn't want to talk about none of that. So he's like, let me create a huge distraction by having Pete Hegseth send these Marines into Los Angeles to do who knows what, while Stephen Miller, the Antichrist, is telling people, we need 3,000 folks a day to deport. And so they're just snatching people off the street. It's like Man on Fire, or The Born Identity. And it is un-American and it is unlawful. We were on a call with the US command and they said, we didn't ask for this and we're not prepared to do this. We're prepared to, help communities when there's a natural disaster, but we are not required to go and enforce civilian law. That's local law enforcement. So, and then I wish that the press would zoom out so you could see that it's like 4 blocks. It's not the entire city, and then this is what's happening. Now, Young Kim, who represents Orange County, is putting forth a resolution that condemns, the rioting and the protesting because the entire city is on fire. And so on the face, of course, you want to condemn, violence, but that's not what this resolution says. It suggests that all of Los Angeles is on fire. So then that's the next thing, because they want to say, oh, Democrats support violence in the streets. So there's a whole bunch of shenanigans to distract us from this petty president who's obviously got thin skin, because if he actually had some strength and was thick-skinned, he wouldn't be so in his feelings about Elon Musk. He's butthurt over that. I think that cut to the quick. And so he's got to do all of this stuff to make up for it. And the other interesting thing is, of course, this is going to cost the city so much money, and we're already battling with a deficit. And this is going to cost federal taxpayers a ton of money, $134 million, because they're going to bring these Marines down here for 60 days. And I am waiting for someone to take a picture of them at Leo's taco trucks because they don't have nothing else to do. But the real danger is ICE kidnapping our community members. And the real opportunity is for us to be in these streets peacefully protesting, because no one signed up for this and no one wants this. You all read the story about the woman in Missouri who was working at the diner and then she got snatched. And the folks in Missouri were like, oh no, we like Maria. What happened to her? Well, she'd been snatched by ICE. So people, and I don't know about you all, but I don't know of any, MS-13 cartel boss in the 3rd grade. So why are you coming for babies in elementary school? So we have to be saying this. We have to be saying this because the traditional mainstream media has amnesia. I said this was domestic terrorism on CNN today. And the lady was like, well, why are you saying that? I said, because he's on here terrorizing people. That's what you call it. And if I have to be provocative, then I have to get provocative. But we have to tell the truth, you know, and we have to push back because we are not in normal times. So why am I going to use normal language? And I'm going to tell you something else. You know what's going on tonight here? There's the congressional baseball game. It's bipartisan. Why am I trying to be at that with these Republicans with all the stuff that they're doing? That is also pretending like we're in normal times. You know what I mean? So we have to just, no friends right now. If you're not on the side of right, I cannot be your friend until you wake up. But why is it that this man is having his birthday party slash military parade? And I'm going to tell you something else. There's a call out for seat fillers because they know that they're not going to have people show up. And I'm going to tell you something else. There are 50, it is embarrassing. There are like 50 Republicans in Congress who said that were interviewed who said they were not planning to go to the parade birthday. Somebody said they were, a birthday party. Somebody was having a colonoscopy. Somebody said they probably going to have diarrhea that day. And it was coming up with all these crazy excuses because they don't want to be there. They know that this man is wicked and probably has dementia, and this is a lame duck, failed administration with failing policies. We're becoming less competitive. I'm sorry, I don't know about you all, but most schools I visit, especially the colleges and universities, we got international talent that are interested in coming to our schools and helping us with research and finding cures and solutions to all kinds of problems. And they gratefully want to come here because we have great schools and want to stay. Well, they're not coming here no more, So we're going to be in the weeds. So that's what's going on here. But Queen Jenna is correct. I have had enough. I mean, I've had enough long ago. But what precipitated all that was this crazy woman who was suggesting that we were not paying attention to the insurrection that's happening on the streets in Los Angeles. And I had just had enough. I said, it's 9 o'clock in the morning and that's too early for bullshit. So here we are. So, anyway, you all just give me so much life. And, we're going to be fighting in the courts, continuing to fight in the courts. And now you see we have to take it to the streets. He wanted this kind of show. But we have to flip the script on the show. And that's going to take a collective effort because the mainstream media is afraid of him. So we have to show courage for everybody. But I think the mothership of courage is Culver City.
Oh, thank you so much. This is home. So, anytime you need that just uplifting, you can pop in on us and we will give you all the energy and vibes, 2,000 plus miles all the way across to DC. I'm actually
Yes.
tempted. If I didn't have a nursing license and two cats that I love, I'd probably be out there with you just saying, all you gotta do is leave the door cracked. I'm not an insurrectionist. I am just a nurse who needs to come do a wellness check.
Mm.
That is my MO. I'm just a nurse doing a wellness check because I care so much. I'm very concerned. I want to again share because I know it's just so important to uplift daring leaders. And then we often tend to leave you out there and let you go out there into the wilderness on your own. And this time that ain't happening. So we're locked up. And again, I will come out and do a wellness check if just leave the door cracked and I have all the language that's needed. We have a couple of questions. I know it's late there. I also want you to get rest. I think it's really important that you stay as rested up as possible because you need to be battling all this mess. And I know they try to pull slick ones by calling session at 1 a.m. Anyway. So I want to go to Tad and then I'll go to Shannon for a couple of quick questions and then we will let you get some sleep. So I know it's after 10 p.m. back there.
Thank you.
Congresswoman, hello. So great to see you. We've met online a couple of times before. Just quickly remind you, I used to work for your predecessor, Congresswoman Diane Watson, and a long time before that, as a young man, I worked for Senator Alan Cranston.
Mm.
I have a request for you, and then just a logistical thing. The United, so some my colleagues here know that I work inter alia on United Nations affairs, and the United Nations is getting decimated right
Chad,
consequential
you're having some
on the
internet
world
issues.
stage as all the USAID. Can I? You're not hearing me? You're not hearing me?
We can hear you
How
clear now.
about
You
now? How
have to
about now?
turn off your camera to come through clearer.
Do you want to put your question
Genius,
in the chat?
genius, genius. Can I keep going,
Yeah,
President
go
Harris?
ahead, keep going.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no
I,
problem.
I, I work, among other things, Congresswoman, in United Nations affairs. And the UN is getting quite decimated by the funding cuts and the hostile attitude. And I say with some regret that I just haven't, there's so much on our plates, but I haven't heard much about that from our side of the aisle. And it's at least as consequential to the poor and impoverished people around the world, as well as things, humanitarian issues and climate change, as the USAID cuts. So I just want to ask you, the Democratic caucus, to try to say some things about the perilous position that the Trump administration is putting the United Nations in. And finally, just a quick question. I'm not the only one of us, your constituents here, who are deeply involved in politics and sometimes travel to Washington, D.C. I know you're not always available for a meeting, but is there can you maybe put in the chat a particular staffer? Like if someone like us is in DC and you'd like to hear from a constituent who's pretty deeply involved in the political world, myself and others, who do we get in touch with? Thanks very
So
much.
yeah, thank you for all that. I'm going to put that in the chat right now. So if anyone is ever like in DC and wants to hang out, or I don't know about hang out, but see me and come and visit and all of that, just email Elizabeth and tell her I'm from Culver City Democratic Club. So you are right about USAID. I sit on foreign affairs and I talk about it all the time. I actually talked about it in judiciary because, believe it or not, we had to debate a Marjorie Taylor Greene bill about chemical castration and genital mutilation, which was all code for they don't like trans kids and they want to criminalize trans kids and medical professionals who work with trans kids. So we had this whole thing. And I because she's a medical professional and expert. So I actually had to talk about where genital mutilation was happening, you know, in other countries around the world. And in fact, we were working to fight against that through USAID funding. But, that's actually where you could support fighting against genital mutilation. We try to talk about it, and I'm just going to be honest. We do try to talk about it in foreign affairs every chance we get. We have not had a lot of hearings in foreign affairs because they don't want to talk about this stuff. So we've been having roundtables generally instead of hearings because they know Democrats bring the heat in the committees. And then also, unfortunately, for you and others, and me too, the polling, people need more information about USAID in order for it to click about why this is so important. And so the things that you know to be true, Tad, take a lot of work to educate people on. But I do talk about the fact that so many of our farmers across this country have contracts with USAID to grow products that, in fact, we are using in other countries, or so many of the pharmaceuticals that we share with countries around the world to help them have clean water and fight against malaria. That's our work that we're doing here, contracting with our own companies. So, but this is what happens when you defund education to the extent that we have because of them. People don't know all of this. And then we're spending time trying to educate folks at the worst, most critical moment. But trust me, I have had my fights with the chair of foreign affairs on this and so many other things.
And
But
believe
thank you for
for
mentioning it.
yeah, that's why people are like, are you worried about getting arrested or detained or anything? And I'm like, well, they can detain me, but then Trump won't get a student loan payment, so he's got to choose. So
Mm.
I want to go to Shannon for her question, and then we will let you get off of here because I know you still probably have work to do, but I really suggest you just get some sleep.
Thank you, Mom.
Hi, it's awesome seeing you. Mine is mostly a compliment. Thank you for your authenticity and your nonconformity. That's the hardest thing I think in life. Um, I also caught your speech at the California Democratic Convention, and you brought down the house. And like you always get me catching the Holy Ghost. It's like, oh my God, somebody catch me. And I want to say I found your comment about Beyonce triggering because Sydney announced, "I want you phone baking like you're trying to get Beyonce tickets." And tomorrow I go to London to see Beyonce.
What?
Just
Okay, we
remember.
all need to live like hello.
So I want you to know that, like, in so many ways, you're just a shining hero. Like, yes, I should be phone baking the way I did that day for Beyonce. That was aggressive. Some friends, we hurt feelings. The question I did have though was you mentioned that there's a second bill looming, and I
Mm,
forgot that I wanted to keep watch of it. If you could remind me the name.
yes. So it's called a rescission package, Recission. And he is basically clawing back money that we already appropriated. So money that Congress already allocated. He's saying, oh no, I want that back because he has to give more money to all of those motherfuckers that were on the dais with him when he got sworn in because Jeff Bezos doesn't have enough, right? Because the CEO of Apple doesn't have enough, right? Because Zuckerberg doesn't have enough. So he's snatching back $10 billion. But, he probably needs it because he's got to pay for the parade birthday party, right? Because he has to pay for ICE drama. So it's called the rescission package, and that's coming to a Congress near you. The other thing is we're going to be voting on a rules package because the speaker wants to redo the Medicaid cuts bill and the not having states regulate AI for 10 years. That was also in that thing, right? But then you had crazies like Marjorie Taylor Greene say, oh, I didn't read the bill. If I had read the bill, I wouldn't vote for it. So now they're going to sort of jigger a reconciliation bill part two so that these people can vote no. And then they can say, oh, no, I didn't vote to cut Medicaid, although it already happened. So I'm giving you the T. So when that starts to come out, you all can say receipts, receipts.
I love the tea. I love receipts.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first bill is the one that stands. That's the one that the Senate is still going to have to negotiate. So those are like two things. One is the fake redo. So people could be like, oh no, I didn't vote to kill Medicaid. And then the second one is to give the man $11 billion dollars of our money and shutting down NPR and public radio
Which is right in
and
Culver
FEMA
and
and
FEMA.
disaster assistance and peacekeeping and PEPFAR.
In the time of climate change too.
Yeah.
Queen, Queen.
And of course, on behalf of Gina, president of the Democratic Club, I will say, tell Trump and his friends and I call them the Legion of Doom, tell them that I said that if they are going to keep making me their sugar mama, I want a date in the Oval Office. I want tea, or I swear to God, I will block every agricultural thing coming out of California that goes into his cheeseburgers and Diet Cokes. So,
Mm,
I'm
mm.
like, I'm waiting for my date to the Oval Office because I'm his sugar mama, and I want that because federal taxes are killing me. And if I could organize a statewide we go exempt, ooh, that would be fun. Um,
Well, sign me up for that because I am all for us keeping our money.
yeah.
We give more money than 24 states combined.
Oh yeah, Indiana
Okay.
being one of them where I'm from.
Right.
Yeah. So
And tomorrow is the White House picnic. So I'm not going because I ain't got no time for all that. But I wonder how many Democrats are going to go. Because when Biden was president and I went, there were a ton of Republicans who actually would knock us down to take a picture with the man. And so, like we should be asking Democrat who went. Did you go?
well, one thing to share with them if it's a picnic is that I wonder how much of their fruit and vegetables they're serving came from California. Uh,
And
ooh.
how many people who are serving it are immigrants?
Yes, absolutely. So before you go, I just wanted to ask if there is something that you could share, like a positive vision for the future of
Mm,
our party, or just, and then how can we best continue to uplift you? I know these tea sessions are great. I love them. But just, I know that things are very grim, and as with the even with the club, it's been really hard to get, I've been trying to
mm,
activate and educate the youth or younger voters. I won't say youth. I feel like I'm 37 now. I'm 37, 37th district.
mm, mm.
But I'm still considered young for the party, and I'm trying to recruit more people, but they're off us right now. So if you have anything like, to help share, I'm gonna share that. I'm gonna keep sharing that clip because the way you brought it, I think that
So I will say, in the midst of all of this, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's a very long tunnel, but I encourage people, and I'm trying to practice what I preach to tap out from time to time and enjoy life. One of the things that I do when I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep is I watch those eagles in San Bernardino. I'm fascinated with Gizmo and Sunny. It's the purity of life. It's very simple. And so find those kinds of things to do because you have to reconnect to the passion that is inside of you, the passion that brought you to the club, the passion that brings you out to demonstrations, the passion that will hopefully bring you out to the Culver City picnic. Make sure that you are filling your cup. And if your cup is full, then you will be able to share some of that glory with everyone else. Today, I was able to celebrate the winner of our national arts competition from the district. Her painting is in the tunnel, and that was amazing. Young people from across the country are celebrating seeing their art in the wall in the Capitol, and we have to continue to promote the arts because that's going to save us. It's going to heal us. And then I will also say, remind people that we are in a fight. It is a battle. We are going to get uncomfortable. People are going to need some band-aids. I mean, this is a real fight for this country, and it's going to get messy. And that is okay. And then also remind people that we don't need everyone to be a quarterback or to be the kicker. There are so many roles for us to play, And you know what? There's not just one quarterback. They have a couple of others because sometimes the one gets hurt or needs a break. And then, the team also includes medics and it includes the people that fill up the Gatorade tub. And it has a whole bunch of coordinators and a whole bunch of different kinds of coaches along with the head coach. And then they have fans. And then they have the people in the concessions because all of those folks work to make sure that the team is successful. Fans help a team become successful. Enjoyment at the stadium helps fans feel happy to motivate them to cheer on their team. We all play a role. And so just encourage people to find the role that they can play and to work really hard to not beat up on members of their team. We don't always have to like each other, but we certainly have to be unified on what the goal is. And my goal is for us to get the gavels in 26 so we can investigate the hell out of this motherfucker and put all of this madness on pause. We cannot have 4 years of this. We have to deal with 2, but we cannot deal with 4. And
yeah.
so encourage folks to find, and then I will let you go, then I will go, but encourage people to find the role that they can play because every single one of our roles is important. Just check it. I'm in Congress, and you all are playing an important role for me right now by allowing me to share what's going on.
and bonding with you in our collective fight for justice. How important a role you are playing for the candidates that are looking to run this next cycle, although hopefully not against me. Although there is someone who wants to run against me, a Republican who decided to become a Democrat, and she's going to pretend like she's a climate activist. So watch out for her.
Lord
But
help us.
I digress.
What's her name?
I will get it. I will get it. She's shady. But anyway, we all play a role and encourage your people to find the role that works for them and let them know it is okay to take a time out, but
Yeah.
they have got to tap back in.
Absolutely. You are
Thank
preaching the
you.
same things I've been preaching. That was just amazing. So, to our esteemed leader all the way in DC, taking time at 10:30 at night to talk to us, we greatly appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you back here in California. But, somebody's got to be out there. But, if you need to throw a shoe, I won't judge you. I just will. We'll go ahead and be ready. We'll be heading to DC to come get you out if you throw the shoe at Marjorie or any of them. I wholly.
Let's go to Goodwill so we can get a whole bunch of
Oh, a
shoes. That
bunch
won't
of
cost
shoes.
us a
A
bunch of
bunch of shoes.
money. Yes.
Yes.
Throw
Thank-
more shoes.
We
Yes.
see
Okay,
Thank
you. We love
Afro.
you.
We love you. I love you
Love
too. Thank
you.
you,
Bye.
everyone. Good to see you. Enjoy Beyonce.
Yes, yes. So that was just absolutely wonderful, worth going the extra time for. I knew that, her staff told me, oh, she'll only be able to jump on for a few minutes. I'm like, I know, Sydney. And here we are at 7:34. So I wanted to go ahead and I want to bring forth our esteemed vice mayor and our newest Culver City Council member, Bubba, who we all know Bubba and we know Freddie, but I'm going to spotlight them so that they can give us some kind of local updates. So we've heard from the Congress. Let's now hear from, oh, sorry, I hit Haifa. Sorry, Haifa. So we're now going to hear from our local there's Freddie. Okay. Hear from our local folks. I think it's really important if you're at the Culver City Council meeting, the Jubilo project was the big topic of discussion. And I'll be honest, I had to send some text messages to our friends up there at the who were, seated, saying that I'm just sending positive vibes. I didn't even get to say for the whole council meeting, but just hearing the first few comments, I was like, I was in the Sydney mode where the mask was coming down, and I was going to just be like, who the hell you think you're calling out right now? And I was like, no, 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 that's not professional. So I had to just send little quiet text messages. I'm sending positive energy. I know you can't read it, but vibes. So I asked them to come and just give us some local updates. I know most of you or some of you were at the meeting anyway, but I wanted this to be a time since we got updates from Sydney to get some more local updates in these very crazy times about what's going on in Culver City. So I'm gonna pass the floor to both of you, and feel free to just really bring up anything you want to talk about. We can take a couple of questions, and then we have our last speakers who we're going to shift over to the drama and the torment of our mental health and healthcare.
Well,
Want to
I
go
just want to start
first,
off by
Vice Mayor?
saying, Gina, we felt that energy, so thank you so much. And Councilmember Fish, do you want to go first, and then I'll pick up anything that you don't get to? Does that work?
Yeah, whatever works for you. That's great. Hey y'all, it's great to be with you. It's great to be with the Vice Mayor. It was cool to hear from our Congresswoman. Thanks to everybody who showed up last night. Like Gina said, a really big moment for Culver City that we were able to, with the Vice Mayor's support and Councilmember McMorrin's support, get in the budget a historic investment in 93 low-income homes on Sepulveda at Culver Palms United Methodist Church. It was a really big community effort. Y'all really came through. The Democratic Club did. Other community groups demanded that we do this because we have not been pulling our weight from an affordable housing perspective. And so really a long time coming. There's still a lot of challenges ahead. And I'm sure the Vice Mayor has things to say about that too. But but for now, this is a really good step in the right direction. And I'm really just grateful that so many people came out to support. I'm just going to run through some things that I'm working on in committee. Some of them are with the vice mayor. All of this has been in public meetings, so we're not getting into any issues. But I wanted to let y'all know what we're working on because a lot of it's really exciting. I'm in a new committee this year called the Governance Subcommittee, where we're working on how do we just make local government work better for people, because it's really hard, right? We're staying up really late into the wee hours. Last one was 1:30 a.m. Transparency is really important. We saw that in the last election, big PACs coming and spending tons of money without much disclosure, pretending and masquerading as community groups that are more progressive. So in the governance subcommittee, we're working on creating motions, like how do we, when you see something on the agenda, which council members did it come from, and actually putting it on the agenda so people can see the initiatives that the council are bringing forth. Reordering the meetings so that people don't have to stay up till 1 a.m. to speak. We're working on how do we make sure that people can come and speak on the item that they want to speak on, and then they can go home if they want. So other cities do things differently. So we're looking at, how do other cities solve this problem? Because no one should feel like they have to come and speak at 1 a.m. or not get to speak at all, right? How do we make it more transparent? What's on what PACs are funding what, and who are those PACs funded by when it comes to election season? So a lot of cities have like rules about that, so that you have to be transparent about where your money is coming from as a PAC. And then we're also talking about public financing. How do we make sure that grassroots candidates can actually succeed? Because we saw in this last election, there were grassroots candidates that didn't do well because it takes so much to go up against really big money interests. On the mobility subcommittee, I hope Freddie doesn't mind I take the thing that we're both working on together, but Vice Mayor Puza and I are working on exploring a parking tax potentially with the finance department. So what if we, had a tax that people had to pay for parking that would raise revenues for safe streets projects, and to make sure that we can, people can walk outside and not fear for their life when they're crossing the street, because we need a lot more funds for those projects. Parking maximums, how do we make sure that developments aren't dumping huge amounts of parking that last for 100 years, even though we know people are shifting to other modes. And, it makes the streets less safe. It makes pollution. It brings pollution and traffic into our neighborhoods. And then how do we expand our cycling and safe streets facilities? We're working on Overland, Fox Hills, Move Culver City Phase 2, Move Culver City Phase 1 extension all the way to connecting to the Adams Project and to the Transit Center on Fairfax. And we already funded the Ballona Creek extension to move that forward east. So that's that project to bring Ballona Creek bike path from Sid Cornenthal Park to Mid-City is moving forward. I'm going to run through the rest of them quick, but it's all exciting stuff, so I can't leave anything out. I'm also on the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee with Councilmember McMorrin. We were able to set aside $250,000 for a new budget process that'll take on our fiscal challenges and give people an actual seat at the table. And I'm so excited that we were able to put that into this budget. Thanks to Vice Mayor Puza for his support on that. We're going to explore how we're going to do that, how we're going to infuse this budget process with community voices. But that became very clear from this process, was like, holy crap, we hear from so few people during the creation of the most important document in our city. We really don't hear from many people at all, and it could not be more important that we do. So very excited that we're moving forward to make it a more community-driven budget. And then finally, we have agendized a conversation to potentially create a public safety subcommittee, because I was in the police policies ad hoc subcommittee, which means it was just me and the Culver City Police Department and another council member. And they were bringing me big documents of this thick to approve with hours notice that related to our immigration policies, which are now quite relevant, and related to surveillance and data and all these things. And I'm sitting there in a room with just CCPD leadership, no members of the public, no transparency. And so hopefully we're going to be able to bring some light into some of the very impactful policies that really change people's lives. If you think about it, what our police, have the power to do. And then finally, last topic, housing and homelessness. I'm on a new committee. Well, it was actually resurrected by Councilmember McMorrin. I'm with her on the housing and homelessness subcommittee. And we're doing lots of good stuff on the number one political issue here in Southern California. SB 79, the bill to bring a lot more housing into Culver City. Vice Mayor Puza, myself, and Councilmember McMorrin voted to endorse it. It has moved past the Senate and is going to the Assembly. Very exciting. It would bring a ton more housing to Culver City and the entire state. AB 609 to expedite housing through CEQA also was endorsed by the city. Jubilee Village is funded. Woo! We passed objective design standards, which which expedite housing production and make it easier for people to produce housing. We passed a small lot subdivision. So if you're in a multifamily neighborhood, you can divide your lot and create a lot more homes. We reduced our number of required community meetings for residential projects to 1. So we don't have to get bogged down in all the in so many community meetings that makes housing more expensive and takes longer to build. And we're also working on expediting 100% affordable housing projects like Mayor Bass has done. We're working on furthering renters' protections, such as enacting a minimum evictable rent debt. That's something the council agreed to discuss. We're working on potentially a legal right to counsel and potentially a direct payment program for those who are, the legal right to counsels for tenants who are facing eviction to make sure that they have representation, because only 5% of tenants facing eviction have access to an attorney compared to 80% of landlords. So it's a power imbalance. So we're working on that. And then finally, we're considering a direct payment program so that folks who are just need help, paying that month's rent or else they're going to go homeless, that we can support them. So tons of stuff. Hope it didn't take too long, but wanted y'all to know we're hard at work here. So grateful for the leadership of my colleague, Vice Mayor, and Councilmember McMorrin, and I feel like we're doing good things for the city and we're on a good path. So excited to hear what Vice Mayor has to say, and I'm also excited to hear from y'all. Thanks.
Thanks, Bubba.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Fish. Bubba, I know we don't have to be super formal, but just
I know
wanted.
I keep messing. I'm so sorry, Councilmember Fish. I just see all you guys as like family because we've been together
Yep.
for so long, but it is like family here.
It is totally. Well, thank you, Bubba, Councilmember Fish. Thanks to the community just for all your support and for your participation. There's a big change in the way that Culver City's doing things. So change is very exciting for some people, but it's also hard and scary for others. So just trying to navigate all of that. But I really appreciate the energy and enthusiasm that Councilmember Fish brings. And in year 3 of being on council, it's also just exciting to see all the change that is happening from things that we've been doing. We got through, we did the budget, very excited that happened. We also approved a senior management analyst position in our Parks and Recreation and Community Services. So that position will help move forward our parks plan. Also, they'll help with grants. So hopefully that will bring in some revenue to offset the cost of that. Thanks to everyone if you advocated for the lifeguards, staff is going to host a all-day all-in-one hiring fair. So you can apply, interview, and test all in one day. They're also going to offer up to $1,500 in incentives. So based on, hours and days. So very excited for that and the progress that, there's a lot more work that needs to be done with that, but, we're moving in the right direction. As far as the budget also, there's a lot of misinformation, but I just want to make it clear that, we're still doing capital improvement projects. We'll still be, fixing sidewalks, repaving roads, fixing bridges. There's $125 million in carryover from the last fiscal year, and $38 million in this fiscal year in capital improvement budget. So we'll still be doing a lot of projects around town. So we'll still be investing, obviously, in the city. Something that we just passed was glue traps. So any rodents that would get caught in them is a very cruel process. So very excited that we passed that ban. There's actually less expensive and more humane ways to deal with the rodent problem. Also in the budget, we're going to bring all of the staff for the mobile crisis team in-house and expand the hours. So it was from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now it's going to be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So excited that that program is going to grow. We also have a homeless outreach request portal, so people can, let staff know if there's someone experiencing homelessness, and they can do outreach and provide services for those people. Happy Pride Month. Pride will be on June 28th from 6 to 9 p.m. At the Town Plaza. Juneteenth will be June 21st from 1 to 4 p.m. at Ivy Station. And then last but not least, we're doing everything we can as far as the ICE raids in our city. I know Councilmember Fish and I, and all of the and some of the council members are really working hard with the police chief. And so we know that the Marines and National Guards may be coming through Culver City. The police cannot notify the public when ICE is in the city. They might not even know because they're not supposed to be coordinating in the first place. Also, it could present some kind of issue if they do say, hey, they're over there. Oops, that's my timer. Because it might, cause a disruption. So we're working with the city attorney to see what can be done. But just want to also say double verify information, because especially with this, emotions are high and things are really tense. So just making sure that people double verify their information. And I'll just stop there because that's my time. Thank you so much. And
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Vice Mayor Puza, Councilmember Fish. Do you guys have a second to take a quick question? I don't see any hands raised right now, but I just wanted to give Haifa. Haifa has her hand physically up in the air. She is excited.
Thank you for taking this. Hello, dear and courageous members, our council members. Thank you for the vote last night. And the night before, sorry. And it was really a brave stand because there was too many attacks on you. And I'm so sorry, Councilman Member Puza. They personally attacked you, and I was looking at you like, this man is Sphinx, man. There's nothing, he's showing nothing. It was amazing. But I asked you once, and I'm going to ask again because I know you like that. Can we have a transparent interview process for all the potential candidates for the city manager? Do it like a Congress hearing. I know how they have it on television on C-SPAN, but if we can do it on YouTube in our channel, because we really, and maybe members of the public can put in their questions to know how this person stands on certain issues, because we'd like to be involved in city governance, and this is the first step we can do. It's easy peasy because it's coming up close to the end of the year. If anyone else likes this suggestion, please raise your hands. I would like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Haifa.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's a great idea. I'd love to somehow include that and see. I'm definitely down to see how we can implement that if it's possible.
I agree. That sounds like a great idea.
Don't think it's possible?
I think so. I don't see why not, but I don't want to say anything without confirming it first.
Okay.
Thank you. And I wanted to go over to Thomas really quick.
Oh, hello. Thank you. I'm sorry, I haven't been to many council meetings or Culver City Democratic Club meetings real recently. I apologize. Maybe this is something that's already been talked about, but I think I'm one of the only people from this group that went over to the swearing-in ceremony for the ironically entitled Democrats United club that had a slate of 14 candidates for the Democratic Convention delegates. And I guess I was a little bit under the impression that we were all Democrats, and we all had like the same basic kind of labor, labor and poor folks kind of approach. And I guess I was surprised that basically nobody except me, I was the only one that I recognized at that event. And there's a real division in Culver City, which I think is unfortunate. I mean, I think that there's two ways to look at it. One is that the Democrats United Club is really just a Republican club, but they call themselves Democrats. And the other version is to say, well, they've been kind of split away by certain wedge issues or whatever. I think the latter is more true. I don't think that these are like necessarily Republicans or bad folks. Um, but I think it is unfortunate that there's this schism or fissure, which I'm sure you have insight into. And um, I just think it would be like better for the city and better for the Democrats if we were a little bit more united instead of having these two clubs. And I was wondering if you have any insights into what's causing that split, and how we can like address it.
Oh, well, I mean, if it's regarding like the split of the clubs, I think I can probably take answer that one a little bit. As like what Freddie had said, is that we're going to have different opinions. Even Sydney had talked about it earlier too, is that we have to agree sometimes to kind of see each other's different points of view. Sometimes emotions run high and we don't get everything through. We're not hearing everything people say. And that leads to these divisions. And then it continues to crack, it continues to build because then we continue to not listen to each other, right? So you see it in the council, you see it in all levels of politics, and now you see it in the clubs too. Um, me personally, when I don't want to go too deep into this issue. I know hands are going up. This is an emotional topic, but for the sake of time, for the respect of the council member and the vice mayor, I'm not going to go too deep into the different points of view on this. I'm just going to say for myself, and for where we're going as a Democratic club, I am all, open for working together to fight issues like this immigration attack that's happening in Culver City and around and in Los Angeles. But we have to be open. Both parties have to be open to the conversation. It can't just be me saying, let's unite or let's do this, let's do that. And then they just keep pushing me away. It has to be like a kind of a shared goal here, right? So, with that, I know there's a lot of stories that go behind what happened and things, but there's hundreds of Democratic clubs in Culver, or excuse me, in Los Angeles County, right? And to me, the Culver City Democrats United is just another one of those hundreds. I'm focused on re-engaging Democratic voters so that we can kick ass, but actually also moving things forward with a new type of politics. Like we need more accountability, more transparency, and actually getting shit done. Right? Because Freddie and Bubba and Yasmin and all the progressives that have come before them have been held up because of these types of fights. I don't believe in that issue. We need to keep the status quo. Nobody wanted to listen, nobody wanted to hear it, and then emotions just got too high and we never could move forward and we're stuck. So we have to break that stagnation by being open-minded, being innovative, being understanding, most importantly, staying calm. So hopefully, I'm like I said, throughout this time, hopefully we're going to continue to try to bridge that. I know a lot of our focus is on the current attack right now, but that's just my response since I'm, as president of the club, well, that's my vision. That's where I'm taking it. It's like, hey, the saying is, I'm with you right. If you're not right, I'm not with you. So I want to go to Jeff, then Shannon. And then I want to hop on because we do have one more group that was part of our program that I want to give them some time for before we have to get into our general meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. I'll try to be really quick because as you said, there is a lot to say about this situation. I think that as far as like state and national issues, we are united. I mean, there will be, a contested primary for, governor or whatever. But if it turns out to be a governor and a Republican, I mean, a Democrat and a Republican, we're all going to be behind a Democrat. We're all going to be behind, Sydney if she comes out on top in her primary and is facing a Republican, etc. Um, when it gets more local, that's where things get a little spicier, right? As you said, Thomas, I think there's really no Republican club in West LA that has any chance of doing anything. So that's where you get the kind of, Rick Caruso Democrats, right? People who are Tracy Park Democrats, people who would be Republicans if being a Republican wasn't a career killer. Um, as far as what's happening locally, I mean, some of this is my fault, You can email me and, blame me. But I think in the last, it's been the last maybe 6 years that the kind of center-right hegemony in Culver City was really challenged. Um, by people like Megan Sally Wells and Alex Fish and Daniel Lee and Present Company and Yasmin and so on. So, and the establishment doesn't know what to do. And we saw them in this club over the last 4 years, fight us and lose on big issues like transit and housing. And rather than, improve their organizing or their debate skills, they decided to take their ball and their money and start their own team.
Yeah.
So I think, I agree with Gina that there are a lot of clubs on the West Side. But I would have been, I'm very disappointed that LACDP let them choose such a similar name. I think if they'd called themselves, the Joe Biden Democrats or the Joe Lieberman Democrats or something like that, it would have been a lot more accurate. I mean, the Stonewall Democratic Club isn't a threat to us. They have their own niche. New Frontier has their niche, but they charted somebody to be in our lane, and that was, hostile.
Well, imitation is the
Enough
best
out of me.
flattery. Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for giving that insight. And I want to go to Shannon really quick, and then we're going to go to our last presenters and speakers.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask Freddie and Bubba. Well, first of all, you know that with increased housing in Culver City, we'll have more progressives coming in. So the stuff you guys are working on is actually resolving this issue as we speak. So they're doing their part. But what I wanted to ask was, what's the next thing we should be paying attention to immediately? Don't put me down the street. I mean, down the line. I got ADD. There's a lot happening. What's the next thing you want me to pay attention to? That. Okay. Yeah.
I'll just very quickly say you touched on something really important at the beginning of that comment, which is like the West Side is gentrifying. And with that comes a wealthier base of residents. The West Side's aging and becoming wider and wealthier. And because of that, we're seeing things like what happened in 22 with the election of Tracy Park and other conservative folks on the West Side. So I really did feel that Culver City being a almost exactly half homeowner and half renter, and it's not split, by the way. It's not like everyone who's a homeowner is one way and it's not like that. But it does tend to skew sometimes more conservative on the homeowner side and more progressive on the renter side. We were, it is a very important moment in the city's history in that if we don't build housing, to Shannon's point, there is a chance that we don't continue to make progress here. If we allow housing costs to skyrocket, we do have a threat of really like becoming more like a Beverly Hills, where progressive candidates have a much harder time getting elected, even though they too have a pretty sizable renter population. But I just wanted to share that. It's like the more, to your point, the more housing we build, the better off we'll be in terms of our pro-housing, pro-affordability agenda. And then what should we pay attention for? Well, Freddie and I have a mobility subcommittee tomorrow at 6 p.m. We're going to be talking about parking maximums, which is one of the most climate resilient things that our city could do. Most of the greenhouse gas emissions in Culver City, the vast majority come from single occupancy vehicles, just cars with one person in them. Um, we know that the more parking we build, the more traffic we get, and um, the more smog we induce. So we need to make sure we're transitioning and also building the transit that communities like Fox Hills have been waiting for years and years and years. So that's something that is coming up on the pike. And then I would also say how we navigate out, just in general, how we navigate our city's finances, because obviously we've declared a state of fiscal emergency because we have had a deficit for 2 years. So what that means is you're going to have on your ballot a sales tax measure in August. We unanimously voted to do that. That revenue is going to be really important to get us back on track. Um, so making sure that passes will be really, really important. And also making sure your voice is heard on how we get back to a good fiscal position, because the sales tax measure is incredibly important. It's also not going to solve everything. So we need to work together to think about revenue. Are we going to, raise certain fees? Are we going to, for example, allow certain types of advertising, limited spaces, whatever? I think Vice Mayor Puza is working on that in a subcommittee. But we need the community in that process, and that's why I'm really excited about this community-driven budget process, because if we hear from you all about how to get our city's finances in a good spot, if we bring the community to the table and hear what services are working for them, what revenue sources are interesting to them, obviously we're the leaders, we have to make the decisions, but to hear from you all is so important. And I don't know, that's what's on my mind and where I think the next big, you know, uh, flashpoints are going to be. And I'm excited to hear what Vice Mayor says.
Thank you so much. I know we are way over time and we still have one more speaker to go. And I'm okay with that because Sydney brought life into us and I wanted to give that life back to her, 2,000 miles and two time zones away. And this was very important to hear from everyone. So yes, we do need to get into our business meeting, but I feel that our next speakers are really important. Oh, Leah, you had your hand up. Do you have something really quick?
Very quick. I just wanted to add what Bubba was saying. He was talking about a tax measure, Measure CL, and we're actually going to vote about whether to endorse that measure tonight. So
If we get to it, I'm going to push through it.
okay.
Thank you. Yes, we will hopefully take a vote to endorse Measure CL tonight. Hoping to get to that. But I do, like I said, want to highlight one more thing. We're going to shift a little bit on the focus from the political side to more of the mental health peer support side. So actually, Danny was the one who connected me to this group, Don't Clock Out, and Danny and his wife, because I am you guys know what I do during my daytime. I'm a nurse. I'm a case manager. I've been fighting healthcare justice issues for many, many years. You see me be an activist. You see me be president now of a Democratic club. I deal with family issues. I don't know how I do it, but I do it. It's probably middle child syndrome. And so when this was presented to me, this group, I was like, yes, it is focused on healthcare providers, but I think we all need peer support. And I think that there are a lot of people who work in healthcare in our club, or we are, family members of people who work in healthcare. I work directly with physicians and residents who are working 60, 70-hour weeks. And just to share a quick story on why this really was relevant and why I wanted to present this, and I'm going to even take this to my department, was because I was working with a med student one week. He was on rotation with Guy in Oncology, which is what I work with. And he was such a nice, kid and just, I see med students every week. I don't really see him, but when we had this little donut thing happen, and none of us had time to go get these sidecar donuts UCLA had brought in. And he went down and he got us all donuts because none of us could go down. And that was the sweetest thing. Well, a few days later, the next week I came in, I saw my intern crying and I was like, what is wrong? And I said, I thought one of our attendings was mean to her and I was going to go beat them up. And she was like, no, but she said that the med student committed suicide. And that hit heavy because we had just saw him. And he was so like, he was just doing such nice things. Like he got us donuts. And that's what's happening inside of healthcare. The burden is so heavy, the moral distress, the ethical burnout, everything is so heavy that, you don't even, the signs might have been there and we're too busy to even catch it. Right. So I want to highlight this. I want to introduce Dr. Anu is Gorukanti. Did I say that right? Close.
Yeah, that's
Um,
perfect.
and Sarah Warren, who's also a fellow nurse with me from Don't Clock Out, this organization that I was just speaking of, that, like I said, is so needed because I want to really, like I said, uplift this message. And especially not just because of it being, oh, it's healthcare driven, but right now, more than anything, I think we need this type of like education because it's, the immigration rate issues are affecting us in the hospitals as well. So I'm gonna turn the floor over to you guys. Thank you for waiting, by the way. I'm sorry we went over, but like I said, time.
Thank you. And just so grateful to you, Gianna, for inviting us, and also to the Congresswoman, Sydney, who was here and took so much time, as well as Bubba. We voted for you here in Culver.
Yes, we had put
As
cards in
well.
our living room, so it's really exciting.
And the mayor, and just we're all huge fans of the work that you're doing, and grateful that you're all so principled. And we need more and more people who are really just staunch in their values. And thank you, Gianna, also for mentioning your that med student. That meant a lot to you, and heartbroken to hear that. And it's why Don't Clock Out exists, and why a news organization, Introspective Spaces, exists, and why we collaborate and do the work that we do. My name is Sarah Warren. I'm a registered nurse, and Don't Clock Out is a peer support community for healthcare workers, and we support healthcare workers nationally, but also here in Los Angeles, as well as in the Bay Area, as my co-founder lives there. And we started this organization after a nurse died by suicide 3 years ago, and we've been facilitating weekly peer support groups since, and we've supported over 3,000 healthcare workers through over 200 sessions. And, this healthcare worker, Michael Odell, he left his shift and made that decision. And there's so many layers that compound that lead to us making those decisions. And part of that is moral distress and the things that we witness and are exposed to every single day and not having support. So our organization is outside of the institutions that we work for, because we know that stigma is such a barrier to accessing mental health care in healthcare. This week in our groups, it was really particularly relevant. What's happening here in Los Angeles is impacting healthcare workers across the country. And folks are really distressed by witnessing what they're seeing on video, what they're hearing from coworkers, from colleagues, also thinking about how little support they might have where they work, where they don't know what to do if I shows up to the hospital. They don't know how to advocate for their patients, or they have coworkers who are undocumented, who are at risk, or they've seen coworkers who are immigrants be deported or be detained. And it is increasingly distressing for healthcare workers to have to witness that, both in their work as well as virtually, as we're exposed to so much on social media. And something actually happened to one of our friends today that is a physical therapist and is undocumented. And she said that ICE was outside of her hospital, and it's rumored that they detained someone for selling strawberries. And that happened in the last 5 hours. So this is escalating. And our organizations are here to support healthcare workers through the toll of that, but also empower them to take action in whatever ways we can. And I just wanted to kind of share a story, and I'm going to read it because I think it just makes the most sense in that way. And I just don't want to misspeak, especially with this topic being very close to my heart. So, as a nurse and daughter of immigrants, I have witnessed the dehumanization of immigrant populations, and in particular, a toll on undocumented patients who face compounding layers of harm and poor health outcomes. The American healthcare system often operates as if undocumented people do not exist, and because of this, it is by design inadequately equipped to support a population that is drastically under-resourced and under-supported. I remember taking care of a young patient who was undocumented. This was their first time seeking care and being admitted to a hospital in the United States. This patient was found to be experiencing an acute kidney injury. meaning damage to their kidneys brought on by working long hours in extreme heat conditions without being able to take breaks to stay hydrated. This patient was diagnosed with end-stage renal disease or kidney failure on this admission. I will never forget this patient who was close to my age, who had a child, being told by a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor, that their only treatment option would be long-term dialysis and eventually a kidney transplant to save their life. But because of their undocumented status, the nephrologist did not believe that they would be eligible for the transplant list in the state that I was working in, and that their best bet would be to move to a sanctuary city in another state for the chance of being placed on the transplant list on that state. So for context, I worked in Florida at the time. This patient who qualified to be an organ donor was not allowed the opportunity to equitable access to transplant as a citizen would, even though their condition was serious enough to need access to that care in order to have a chance at living, a chance to be with their wife, a chance to be with their child. There is a moral toll in caring for people who are being harmed both by the violent actions of agencies like ICE and the violence created when policy and legislation is rooted in dehumanization. And with a purposefully underfunded legal system and overfunded punitive and militarized system, is it any wonder there is a crisis of documentation? And I had a friend who I spoke to before this share, all citizenship means in this country is who is worthy being considered a full human being. And this was from Alfredo Carlos, who is a professor of labor studies and political scientist here in LA.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And I know we're short on time, so I'll also be really brief, but I'm Anu Gorukanti. I'm a pediatrician actually at one of the county hospitals here in Los Angeles at All of You up in Silmar. And so I'm the co-founder of Introspective Spaces, and we work really closely with Don't Clock Out. We're an organization that offers reflective space for healthcare workers, and we use a lot of creativity and art and ritual to help people process their moral distress. And for me, this issue is very personal because I work in a county hospital with 100% Medi-Cal patients, and almost the vast majority of my patients are folks who have immigrated to this country. And I work as a newborn NICU hospitalist, meaning I'm the first pediatrician a child ever sees because I'm there the moment that they're born, and I'm the first person to examine their baby. And I think one of the biggest tolls of working in this environment is just the moral distress of witnessing what many families are escaping from and what they're trying to navigate, all while giving birth to a baby and trying to bring new life into this world. And so in our organization, we talk a lot about moral distress, this idea that you feel constrained to live out your values because of systemic injustices that are the reason why you're not able to provide the care that you want. And there's so many stories that we have from both Sarah and my experience. Like I had a patient who was escaping domestic violence coming from Central America, and in doing so escaped with almost nothing, just her daughter, and gave birth in my facility. And hearing her story and recognizing that she had no place to go, she had none of the resources that she needed for a baby, and all we could do is offer her like a social work consult and maybe a car seat. And to this day, I still don't know what happened to them. And I also know in this political climate, could I imagine ICE coming to our hospital? And these are the patients that they would find. And so in our work at All of You, we've done a lot with kind of standardizing what to do if ICE agents come to the hospital. I gave a talk recently on like how to review the warrants, what to do to know your rights. And Sarah and I are working with a local Filipino-led organization called La Cas to host a free Know Your Rights training for healthcare workers next week. So we'll definitely send that information to y'all, Gina, so that way if any folks want to come and just know, especially if you know people in healthcare or healthcare adjacent, just want to understand what our rights are and how we can best protect patients, especially since this reality of people coming into places that are historically sanctuaries is very, very real. And so we talk about, both of us, like our work is really rooted in the principles of community care. Like in healthcare, so much of what we tackle are things that we can't change. And some of that we signed up for, like we knew that we were going to witness suffering, like from people dying from diseases, But I think what we didn't really expect was to witness completely preventable, inequitable suffering. And that's what really causes the moral toll on healthcare workers. And so the only thing I'll add to this is to think about our own sustainability in this work. And so I think to instead reclaim ideas like self-care, to think about collective well-being, and that even groups like this are a great example of creating that community space for people to share with each other and to be able to engage in ways of recognizing that this mutual aid is an example of what that resistance can look like, and that we can use things like art, like rituals, things that we can learn from many, many contemplative cultural traditions who have navigated a lot of hardships before us and still do. And I always encourage folks, because many of us in the activist space are just like, there's so much to do all the time, and just kind of reminding us like that they're creating these like rituals for sustainability, for allowing ourselves to rest, to allowing ourselves to still experience joy, like Sydney was talking about. It feels so frivolous, but it's also the medicine that our heart needs to keep going. And so that's a lot of what our organization does, is convincing people to slow down, to be able to reconnect with themselves enough to know that we inherently have the wholeness that we need to keep going.
Yeah, oh my God, thank you so much. And that's probably why Danny had brought me to you guys, was because he saw me and was like, yeah, so chill. And that's exactly what I've been doing. Like I have, even though I'm doing so much, because nursing is not just you're not just a bedside. I'm not just in the hospital. Nursing is a way of life. Advocacy is a way of life. And here I am, so but yes, I do need to chill out sometimes, and that's why I try to dedicate a day to my day of just me like reading, dark romance and watching cartoons. Anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for just popping in and sharing this. So you guys see how much this is connected. So we talked from, political, like Sydney, and she's ending it on self-care. Take care of yourselves. It's a lot going on. Take breaks, rest, go have fun. And now we swing to healthcare providers who are telling you the same thing. So now you've got doctors' orders, nurses' orders. You have literally got a sitting member of Congress's orders telling you to chill out, Bubba, Freddie, and get some rest, because this fight is ongoing. It's long. It's very long. So I want to thank you guys for popping in, and sharing. And I will be, like I said, talking to my own director to see if we can get more of this information into my job. I even, just the advocacy doesn't stop, because I called off work on Monday just to go to the labor rally downtown. Because I say over 50% of my direct coworkers are immigrant, either African or Filipino. And they're scared. They're very scared. And they are too scared to even speak up. They're too scared to stand up. And so I'm like, well, I'm not scared. I'll be downtown. You guys cover my patients. So, again, I just want to share that. I know we went way over on time. And so